Welcome back in to Drilling Deeper, a Pit and Quarry podcast. I'm Kevin Yanik, editor-in-chief of the magazine, and today we're going to spotlight Peckham Industries, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary. We're going to talk about family businesses and their role in the industry and in the country, and the contribution of the aggregate industry to making the USA what it is. But first, I want to introduce my partner on the podcast, Jack Kopanski. Jack, how's it going today?
Kevin, I'm swell. How are you?
Doing great. Looking forward to talking about Peckham Industries and hearing from our guests, Damian Murphy and Gregory Peckham today.
Yes, sir. You had a great interview with them. Looking forward to hearing from them. Before we do that, though, I want to thank our show sponsor, TCI Manufacturing. Celebrating 25 years of excellence in 2025, TCI Manufacturing embodies the promise of concepts to reality as the industry's leading aggregate resource. TCI specializes in precision-engineered, custom-fabricated steel products committed to delivering top quality, strength, and precision in every project. Learn more at www.tcimfg.com. Thank you also to our episode sponsor, Syntron Material Handling. With more than 140 years of bulk material handling experience, Syntron Material Handling is a recognized industry leader that provides innovative engineering solutions, high-performance products, and superior customer service. Syntron offers solutions in conveying, feeding, screening, elevating, vibratory flow aids, and mining controls of bulk product. For more information, visit syntronmh.com. Thank you to TCI and Syntron.
Yeah, thank you to our sponsors. Again, we're in episode 21 here, going live August 13th, and we're putting the spotlight today on New York-based Peckham Industries, which again is celebrating its centennial. That's not something that most industry companies or most companies anywhere in America are celebrating, but here we are in 2024, and Peckham Industries is doing a lot to celebrate this milestone moment in the history of the company. And again, as I mentioned at the top, we had Damian Murphy and Gregory Peckham, the privilege of having them visit with me on behalf of Pit and Quarry, and we published in our July issue, that's our dealer issue, we published a special story talking about the things that matter most to Peckham Industries, the values that the company embodies, and where they see the industry going in the years to come. And we've saved the full interview for you today. So what you read in the magazine is kind of pieces and parts of what we had in full, but we have the live and in the flesh Damian Murphy and Gregory Peckham to share with you here today. It's about a 30-minute interview, and one of the things that Damian shared as I was kind of wrapping up my interview with him in recent weeks was, what they're trying to convey to the industry, to the communities that they serve about their 100th anniversary. And, that's really the contribution of what this industry does to the country as a whole. Jack, the Peckham Industries story, it's unique in a sense, but there's so many companies across the industry that are doing some of the things that Peckham's doing. We're construction materials producers. At the magazine, obviously we're focused on aggregates, and Peckham Industries, is producing those as well. But, as Damian says, it's thousands of locations and millions of people across the country who really allow the country to do what it is. It's the Peckham Industries of the world that are building the civilization that we have. And, construction materials, whether it's ready-mix concrete, asphalt, aggregates, cement, whatever, it's all essential to the world as we know it. And as Peckham Industries has kind of built this theme for their centennial, for their 100th anniversary, it's really promoting the things that our industry does well. It's the world as we know it. And, as simplistic as that message is, Jack, it's a message that we've talked about on the podcast before. It's not one that we really convey and share well as an industry, but Peckham Industries, for its part, is trying to get that out there and celebrate the fine work, the necessary work that our industry does for the communities everywhere in the USA.
Yeah, and you talk about celebrating what a company does well, like Peckham. You have to do a lot well to get to 100 years, and it's not just one leader that has to do well. It's not just two leaders. It is decades and generations of leadership and employees that are doing the right thing and doing right by their customers. I was just looking here, since 2000, I'm sure there have been more, but just some of the big names that have reached 100 years. You had Vulcan celebrate 100 years in 2009. They initially started as, from what I saw here, Birmingham Slag Company, and merged with Vulcan later in the 1900s. And Luckstone celebrated 100 years last year. Peckham celebrating 100 years this year. Some really good company, and I think that speaks to, like you said, this isn't something that every company can do is last 100 years. So this just really goes to show that Peckham's doing the right thing, has done the right thing, and I have no reason to believe they won't continue doing the right thing and doing it very well.
And from Gregory Peckham and Damian Murphy today, we're going to hear how did Peckham Industries ultimately make it to 100 years? As you said, Jack, that is not an easy thing to do. A lot has to go right. As one of our guests says, you have to have a lot of luck in order to get there too. So it's a multi-pronged recipe that ultimately gets you to 100 and maybe gets you to 150, maybe gets you to 200, because those milestones are even fewer and farther between. So, with that, we've done our preamble for this interview ahead with Damian and Gregory. Let's hear from the guys themselves.
Damian, we had talked previously about generations of family businesses, not necessarily making it to the third generation, let alone the fourth. And here we are, maybe even looking at 5 in the coming years or in the coming decades. So how do you defy the odds ultimately to kind of get to that third generation, to the fourth? Because we don't see that success story translating across generations in our industry or any industry for that matter.
Yeah, I'll comment first, I guess, Greg, and then you can share the kind of the family perspective on it. As you said, it's not easy to do, Kevin, and there's certainly been hiccups along the way or challenges along the way to make sure that ownership, wherever it lies, finds alignment, to make sure that the cultures and the values continue to be carried forward. And I would say historically, when those were out of alignment, there's 2 choices. One is that somebody steps up and kind of brings it back to alignment, or typically what happens is that these businesses get passed on to new ownership and go a different direction. So I think the one kind of historical statement of the Peckham piece of it is that there's always been somebody each generation that wants to kind of carry the flag, and certainly Greg's dad has been the one in the third generation that took that mantle, and certainly wasn't easy to make it happen, but there was a focus, and there has to be a focus. And I think that's the lesson that the fourth generation has taken, is that there's got to be a plan, there's got to be alignment, and where there isn't, there's got to be a mechanism in future, if it ever happens, that it gets dealt with. And it takes a lot of planning. But fundamentally, going back to the sustainability of business is really about the people in the business and doing the right things. That comes back to those values that we've talked about and that have been with us for a long time. And some of your questions about how those values go forward. And for us, it's about putting a focus to them. Maybe I'll jump into that second question while I'm still talking, but safety and integrity are 2 values that most companies will aspire to, and all companies should live to, right? I mean, you should ensure that you've got a safe workplace and that you take care of your, as we call them, friends and family. But you also have to have integrity in what you do, and if you can't trust the business partners that you deal with, then that's a no-go anyhow, right? So those 2 are certainly something that every business should be aspiring to. But the 2 more important ones that I think about is the idea of dedication and efficiency, because they go to the heart of being in business, right? Is that you've got to take care of your customers through service and through quality, and be dedicated to meet their needs, as well as we operate under license in our communities. And if you're not dedicated to your communities in the right way, that license will be revoked. So that's a key one with dedication. Then the efficiency in any business, right? You got to make sure that you've got efficiency about what you do, because we are in competitive marketplaces, and we got to make sure that we can produce at a cost that makes sense for us to get to the profitability or the value that we want to deliver. So anyhow, I took the question a bit further than maybe you asked, but hopefully that's
No.
I'll throw it back to Greg.
Yeah. I'd say, I guess, to start with the one thing, there's luck, always a good amount of luck as well. And I can remember though, my siblings remember times when, my dad was, beside himself, so stressed. I mean, we were losing money. It was a tough time through the 90s. But to Damian's point, there was a focus and a plan, and there's always been that emphasis on planning for the next generation, for the next level of leadership. And my dad was planning his exit for a long time, and bringing on Damian was a great timing and process. And I think Damian being here and just the results that he's delivered and the value that he's brought to us is what really has allowed us to get there. Damian touched on is the people, and my father, and just as a business, looking back to, we have a book of the first 50 years, even my grandfather, talk about just how amazing the dedication that people have offered our family and the business over the years has been. And people really have taken it and treated it like they owned it. And that's been the driver of any of our success over time, is having such an amazing dedicated group that really acts like and is like a family that just wants to see this business succeed, and to see us grow. And when I look at, just before this, I pulled up our anniversaries. So we celebrate every 5 years. Someone's with us, we do a gift and do a 5-year anniversary. Over the next 5 years, we'll have over 200 people who will hit their 20 plus mark. This year, we've got just one is on their 45, but we have 3 people here now have been with us over 45 years. I mean, it's just part of our culture, and it's been part of our culture since my grandfather, my great grandfather's time. That people come to us, to be part of this company and stay and do treat it like it's their own, and carry that ownership forward and carry those values forward. And it allows us to, operate the business in a way where people have the autonomy, and develop the mastery over time to do their jobs well, and to make sure that they're doing them with integrity. We talked about being a really critical part of our values. So really proud of that. And I do think those questions tie well together, because that really both are what's allowed us to get to this point now.
Maybe just to add in a question along those lines, you talk about people and the values, sustaining those values over the course of 100 years, a lot easier said than done, I would imagine. But how do you essentially get the buy-in, maybe first of all from your people, and then secondly, Greg, I'm just curious from your seat, what the planning, because you guys talk about the planning for the next generation to sustain the company for 25, 30 plus more years. I guess, what does that look like in a family business, or at least from the Peckham Industries approach? I suppose it's different from family to family business, but what does that look like in your world?
I think it's something that was, and to take the first part of the question, something that was really more organic over time. We had a lot of generations of families that worked with us, and still do. And those generations of families have kind of helped keep that culture together. And as we've continued to grow, we've placed more and more of an emphasis on really codifying and talking about our values so that we can maintain them. So we bring people together a lot more now, and Damian's been a huge driver of this, to make sure that we're capturing what it is that makes our company unique today, so we can continue to perform that and develop and nurture that culture as we grow. Our culture's changed a lot over time too. The values have stayed the same, but the culture around has changed as the times change. And I think that adaptability and recognition of when it's time to change has been a huge driver of our success. One of our key sort of phrases we talk about is we want to be a team of compulsive tinkerers. And so we're always looking to find the next way to improve, and we're never really satisfied, and the culture's the same in that we know that we constantly need to be tweaking and correcting and guiding our culture. We just want to keep it true to those core values. On the family perspective, it's a lot of meeting together and spending a lot of time together as a family, and my parents drove that to the point where we were meeting together as a family about the business when I was 8 years old, until today. And it's just a lot of communication, and trying to get shared vision and alignment, like Damian said, and we work hard at that to make sure that the business knows that we're aligned with the goals, and that we can help support in whatever ways are possible. And it's been a lot of dedication from the family too.
I think that's just one more question too, and Damian and Greg both feel free to jump in on it. But you talked about bringing Damian in, Greg, and obviously having leadership at the top today, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. I mean, it's essential to get that buy-in. But I guess I think about it. Well, I'm a big sports fan. I'm here in Cleveland, and we're always asking, why can't the Cleveland Browns win? Like, why don't we win the Super Bowl? And my argument is that it starts with the top. Our ownership's terrible. and it trickles down. Bad decisions are made. It permeates throughout the building. Now, would probably argue that the same applies in your world. So, I mean, how important, valuable is it to have steady leadership at the top, setting the tone that is allowing for buy-in, whether it was in 1924 or 2024?
Well, the ownership's still terrible here, but um, I mean, David, I'd be curious your thoughts on this, but I think that you know transition in ownership and that adaptability again has been a pretty big part of our business. My grandfather passed away unexpectedly and pretty young, and my grandmother took over along with another great guy, Jim DeForest, and then my dad stepped in relatively early. He did have a long career there, but before that, and over these 100 years. We've had six separate CEOs, Damian, three of them outside the family. So we have had a lot of change, and I think it's that culture and that permeation down from the top on a leadership level, but having so many leaders in the business that are so dedicated to seeing it succeed and have been here so long and just know what the right thing to do is, that has really set us apart and allowed us to adapt and get through those times when we have had these transitions. And then having such strong leadership, and Damian's really brought us to the next level here, has then just accelerated that, sort of like we have the gunpowder here with the people, and getting someone in the right place and getting through a transition who can just sort of light that fuse, like Damian has, is really all that this team needs.
Yeah, I think maybe to jump on that, to me, the biggest thing that builds success, right, is alignment first of all, right, between the owner's vision and the management team's kind of execution and path forward. So, we've been fortunate in that, even though John was transitioning into the chairman role and away from the operating side, the vision was still there from John and the board that we were going to grow the business and we were going to go forward with it. So, first of all, that's the number one thing, right? There's a vision about where we're going. The next thing is alignment in how you get there, right? And that comes back to our values and the focus on our values. Because, change is the only constant. That's what we talk about. But those values, they can stay the same, right? You're just in a new environment. So it's alignment around the direction and where you're going, and it's the alignment around how you're going to go forward. And then it's the communication of those expectations, right? And getting people to understand those expectations, and more importantly, where they play, right? Because there's a lot of different cogs in our business, and everybody has a purpose in our business. Not everybody can be in the corner seat, and not everybody's going to be out on the paver, but there's a lot of things that happen in our business. And if you can get people to align their role with the vision and how we go forward, that to me is our winning strategy. And that is all about communication and staying true to that, right? You can't, unlike the public companies as well, we've got time on our side, for want of a better term, right? We can look 5-10 years down the road, where they're looking 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road. And, depending on who's in the seat and what's happening at the shareholder level, there may be a different direction, a different message that comes back. Whereas in the family businesses, you have that patience, and that ultimate message rarely is changing. And there's you can build alignment to it, and in time you build mastery to that alignment. And that's where we talk about mastery and autonomy in our business. We've got masters at every level in our business. They have the autonomy to own the decision, and that's where the ownership comes from. And guess what? If you own something and you're that tied to it, the decisions you make will be much better. It also gives you purpose. So that's really the strategy that we're employing here.
Damian, you touched on the family business, and that was one of my questions too. We talked about that offline as we were kind of reflecting on the 100 years of the company, and the family business was probably the number one model, I guess. I mean, it was probably all family companies 100 years ago, and today there's still the family company as a business model, but now you alluded to the public companies with some different visions and different ways about going about things. What is the role of the family company today? And I don't know if you guys want to reflect on then and now in your experience and how you've seen that change, but but what's the role of the family company in the aggregates industry today in the construction material space? And then, Damian, I know we talked more broadly about family companies in America and what they've contributed and what they've meant in building the success of this country. If you want to jump in on that as well, and Greg, if that's something that's near and dear to you, I'd encourage it as well.
Yeah, look, I think, these family businesses, they can perpetuate the story of kind of what these businesses have contributed, right? I mean, we can point to big infrastructure projects over the last 100 years that Peckham have been heavily involved in, and we build upon those legacies. And even our folks who've been with us a long time, they can talk about coming back to another project that they were on 25 years ago and continuing to, build and contribute to the community. I think that all businesses have the opportunity to think in terms of longer visions, right? Longer strategies. It's just that the public companies are tied to the winds of change at the stock market level and the shareholder investor level, because there's a turnover and a change there. But their strategy could be longer term, but the way they're measured and how they think about things, it's much shorter term. Whereas a business like us or family businesses, they're geared to much longer term thinking, and particularly the ones that have been successful over generations, right? It's that ability to think in terms of decades and generations that allow them to transition to the fourth and potentially the fifth level. Some family businesses don't even take the time to do that, and that's why they don't make it even to the second or third generation. But all businesses have the ability to think more strategically and longer term. It's just family businesses that have been multi-generational have the experience of the value of doing it, and they stay patient about taking that to the next level, assuming they can keep that alignment and that vision in front of them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Damian said, and I haven't had the experience of working in the public sector like Damian has. But from our perspective, I completely agree with Damian. Any company has the capacity, right, or the ability to act in this way. But for a public company tied to the stock market, or for a business that just simply isn't as focused on that long-term planning and succession planning, the focus on developing your talent and building your team and looking out 15 years ahead at what's going to happen when I retire. In the case of my dad in the third generation, doesn't allow for those smooth transitions of alignment that David was talking about, which is so critical. So I think it's not just the ability to plan; it's an exercising that and really making it a priority. And we've been very fortunate that we've had generations of people who have made that a priority and beat it into our heads that as we continue down that needs to be a priority. But it would be sad to think, and I think Damien would agree, that it just has to be a family business to have those types of values and thoughts. It just is unfortunately what you tend to see in today's market.
Yeah. As you guys are looking ahead, you're potentially thinking years from now about the fifth generation and beyond. You guys have conversations about what the industry is going to look like and what Peckham's role is going to be in that. One of the questions that I shared in advance, just looking outward, even as far as 100 years, but Greg, curious from your point of view, being in the family, and Damian, being in the, a leadership role there as well. What's the future look like for Peckham? What's the future look like for the industry?
Yeah. Sure, I'll take this first, and Damian, I have a much better answer. But we do think about what things look like 15 or 20 years out. Obviously, we're not dedicating hours of time in that, but we do talk about what does this world look like as the times change, and what might be some opportunities or needs for diversification down the line. And as a family, we have diversified in the past and tried different businesses and avenues to always be looking for another opportunity where it's needed. However, we see just tremendous opportunity to grow and a tremendous need in our country right now for infrastructure, as we see so much manufacturing onshoring, supply chains moving back into the U.S. Our infrastructure currently deteriorating, with bridges collapsing in some of our states that we operate in, like in Rhode Island, and roads falling apart. We believe our core focus is just going to be on growing and developing our mastery in the construction materials side of the business for the next, at least 10 years. and we hope to be very successful in that. So.
Yeah, I think, look, from my perspective, Kevin, you think about the future, right? The ownership of the business is one thing, and I think that's pretty well embedded, and we're in a very solid position. But when I think about the role that we play in society, right? We're building the civilization. The Romans were building roads very similar to how we build them today, right? So I don't expect to see a dramatic change over the next 20 years or even the next 100 years in that. Maybe we'll get to flying cars and all those other things, but practically speaking, right? I think the fundamental change that will happen in our industry is that we will see less and less direct labor needs and more application of technology and systems to make that working environment less onerous maybe than it is today, right? If you go into a quarry today versus going in 25 years ago, there's less people in there as we've upsized the equipment and we've brought technology. I think that's going to continue. I think the conditions in our operations will continue to improve. And going back to that, that license to operate in our communities, we've got to continue to take care and be stewards of our quarries and our other facilities in a way that allows us to operate. And that means just being more environmentally sensitive, more efficient, more aware of what we're doing. But in practice, I'm not sure the products and services we're providing are going to change a whole lot over the next 20. On the edges, there'll be substitutions and other things, but we are fundamentally a very local business. The products that we're providing are not going to come in from overseas. They're not going to come in from out of state, typically, right? We're just going to still be doing what we're doing. And our hope is that when somebody walks into a Peckham site 50 years from now, that they'll recognize the people that are in there and the values that they're being shown in those sites as they are today and as they would have been 50 years ago. And that's what we're focused on, to be a positive member of our community, certainly a for-profit business, but really building the civilization that gives people a better life.
Damian, maybe, and Greg, maybe to bring everything full circle, Damian, you talked about the quarry today versus 25 years ago. There's less people moving toward more tech, more systems to get things done. What does that mean for the role of the person? People, what you guys are leaving me with, they're instrumental to the success of your company and have been for 100 years. So I guess what is the role of the person, with the Peckham Industries or with a construction materials company? How does that change, over the next 15, 20 years? Do you have a sense?
Yeah, I mean, if you, and this is already starting to happen, right? If you look at even the technology that's coming into our sites, particularly on the mobile side, but it's also going to happen on the plant side, where you need to be technically proficient in basically troubleshooting a big loader or a big truck, right? I envisage where we won't even be touching those anymore as owners of those pieces, that will be utilizing the service providers to come in and basically ensure that our fleet is available for production purposes. So I think that side is going to continue to diminish, and that's 20 plus years. But if you think about the age of our fleet, is a big factor on the mechanics that we use. If you take all the pieces we have today, 20 years out, the mechanics won't be touching them with wrenches. They'll be touching them with computers, every piece. I mean, they're doing that today, right? We're going to end up outsourcing that. So the skill set will change for sure. And even on the plant side, right? We'll get to a point where, we'll be outsourcing, the repair and maintenance, even some of these facilities on a more scheduled basis. And the people that are, as the equipment becomes more robust and more reliable, the kind of the maintenance or tear down needs become less and less. So then you want to rely on the experts to do those things and basically look for your warranties and things. I think that we're already moving that way from an industry standpoint. So to me, when you think about the future, who's going to be running the plant, they're going to be more technically savvy and less hands-on. And we may have automated shovels cleaning up around the plant, or a better system for that carry back on the plants, right? The plants will probably be more enclosed, right? So that environmental issue that we're seeing will continue to improve. So when I think about it from a practical standpoint, those are the changes that we will see. And even today, right, we're looking for more programmers and people to lead our automation of our plant versus 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, we were looking for electricians, right? They could go in and unwire. That transition is happening. So that to me is where the workforce will be. Less people, probably more technically qualified and relying more on computers or the systems than we see today.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Maybe just one more question. It probably would have been best to ask this at the outset, but what does it mean to you, Greg, and Damian, to be part of 100 years of Peckham Industries? And Greg, as you were kind of sharing some thoughts, I was thinking, what do you think your predecessors in the family would think, knowing that their company that they stewarded and brought along has made it to this mark?
I think they'd be shocked too. I mean, I don't think anybody could have anticipated that, including my dad. Despite his dedication and help to it. We've just been unbelievably fortunate with our times and our people and just our opportunities. So I think they'd be very excited, very proud, and very surprised. I think Damian also is a history buff. I love history, and it's just amazing to be able to drive around and see what you've added over time to these communities and to society. And I think that our industry doesn't always get that recognition. And I know Damian, it's a big focus of his that any road you drive on in this area, most of the airports, hospitals nearby our quarries, schools, daycares, you name it, nothing gets built without our materials. Nothing. And, we have been a part of building out all those. And when we get into an area where it was, they have pictures on the wall and you say, when was that? And it's only 30 years ago, and it looks like a rural community. And now it looks like a modern city, place like Middletown, New York. It's amazing to think that you were a part of that, and really not just a part, but a critical, one of the largest parts of making that possible. So it's really exciting. It's very humbling, and we're just really really grateful to be here, be part of it.
Yeah, look, from my perspective, I've been in this industry now for 30 years. So I'm part of that history now, I guess, when I think about it. But I've been very fortunate that I've worked in private companies and public companies, and but more importantly, I've worked with some really talented people that were willing to kind of coach and teach me. And I'm very humbled to have gotten the opportunity to take this business that's 100 years old and be able to sit at the helm for a short period here in its history, and for one better term, take from what I've learned from others and try to coach and bring this business forward, and then really bring the industry forward as well as we prepare for the future, because we are fundamental. We are as important as teachers and police officers and doctors in our communities, and being a part of that is humbling for me and rewarding as well. And I'm just pleased that I had the opportunity to carry the legacy of the Peckham way forward.
Any final words, guys? I appreciate the time and all the insights and reflections here today.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing for me is, we're trying to call out in our Peckham 100 celebrations is the contribution of this industry to this country, and that we are local, and we're built on local people's efforts, but we have a national impact in the success of this country by what we do, and it's thousands of locations and millions of people across this country doing what we do is what enables this country to be successful. And we're just trying to celebrate that and recognize that and continue to support that legacy for the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think we have such an exciting journey ahead of us with all of, we mentioned the infrastructure needs in the country. And we really have an opportunity as an industry to, show everybody what an amazing career path, amazing, community is built in this industry, and what you can be a part of, being in the construction materials and the construction space. So we just hope to see, more people get excited about this industry and feel that pride and want to come be a part of it.
Well, again, that is Damian Murphy, CEO of Peckham Industries, and Gregory Peckham, the general manager of Peckham Industries, who represents the fourth generation of his family in the business there, based in New York. And again, thanks to those guys for being so gracious with their time. Jack, there's a lot to kind of dissect there because I think Damian and Gregory covered a lot of ground for us, talking about the future of the industry and, what the workforce is going to look like, what the typical person in their job and their role is going to be shaped like, in the next 15, 20 plus years. But one thing that kind of off the bat stuck with me as I was thinking about the things that those guys shared was, you got to have alignment at the end of the day with, your people. You got to have alignment with the people heading the business, whether it's, the CEO or somebody in the family, essentially. Someone's got to take the torch from generation one and then want to go all in and, be all about the company and supporting those values and in order to get it going for another 20, 25 years. Interestingly with Peckham Industries, it's a company that's had 6 CEOs in its time and 3 of those were from outside the family. And, Damian Murphy's obviously one of those 3 who came from outside the family, and it's really helped to bridge the gap for Peckham, having a voice at the top who's able to kind of disseminate down the messages, carry through the values to the people. And I think it was one thing that Gregory might have shared. You got to have buy-in from the people. Damian echoed this as well, but you got to have people who want to take the business and run it and do their jobs as if they're the owners of the business, to have that sort of level of buy-in. And again, so much has to go right, as you kind of alluded at the very top of the podcast. We don't see 100 years come across too often for companies anywhere. I think it's interesting, too, that, just the different makeup of companies in our industry. You've got family businesses like this, and, Damian talked, too, about, the public companies. He'd come from Oldcastle, and we worked a lot with Damian ahead of the Hall of Fame induction, the Pit and Quarry Hall of Fame induction in 2024 of Tom Hill, somebody that he worked alongside for a very long time. So there's different ways that companies can go about doing business over the years. And, here we see one model with Peckham being the family owned, and congrats to them for getting to this unbelievable mark.
Yeah, absolutely. 100 years is nothing to sneeze at. That's incredibly impressive. And again, I think that just speaks to, like you mentioned, like Gregory mentioned, like Damian mentioned, just the alignment that has to happen within an organization of that size and the alignment that has to happen for that long. Again, this isn't something where you can't have 5, 10, 15 good years and expect, we're good for a century now. This has to be a real commitment to that alignment, a real commitment to the people, a commitment to your customers over 100 years. This is nonstop for them. And it obviously shows in them reaching this mark and hearing from Gregory and Damian. And, some of the things that stuck out to me, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit in what you were saying, is the people. I mean, it's a two-way street, but if you don't have the right people, if you do not have the right environment, if you as leaders are not creating the right environment for these people to thrive and to want to treat this company like it's theirs, 100 years is never going to happen. So obviously Peckham knows what they're doing, and Gregory knows what he's doing. Damian knows what he's doing when it comes to fostering that environment, to making people feel welcome, to making it a good place to work. People want to show up to work every day. So, I mean, that's huge. Gregory also mentioned safety, and I feel like it's something that, we talk a lot about. It's something we see a lot about, where safety is sort of is value one at the Martin Marietta's, the Vulcans, the CRHs, the Luckstones, everywhere. You want as many people going home as showed up in the morning, and obviously, that's kind of par for the course now. But we were talking a little bit before we recorded this episode, and you even said you're like that wasn't always the case, and we've seen in some of the data and some of the fatality trends that we've seen that it used to be a very different world people were operating in when it comes to aggregates. So, that's great to hear them being vocal about, obviously keeping safety at the top of the list. And another thing is, just for a company to last this long, you mentioned the 6 CEOs, 3 out of the family. Gregory talking about being basically ready and able to change when you have to, where it's like, if you need to shift paths, if you realize something isn't working or something else could work better, not being afraid to change courses or switch paths. It might work, it might not. But if you're on a losing path and you're too afraid to switch to try something new that could work, you already know where your fate's headed. So being able to make sort of some of those hard decisions, some of those quick decisions of being able to adapt and change as either the industry is adapting, as technology and equipment is adapting, as the people are adapting, is obviously a crucial part of the reason they've been able to get to this point. And then just finally, you know, as you heard in the interview, both of them sort of shared their insight on what the industry and world are going to look like 15, 20 years from now. A lot of good stuff there. I think the things that stuck out to me from that is that the way Gregory put it, you know, I don't think any of us expected that infrastructure projects were going to be dying down anytime soon. That's obviously something that's very, very much needed in this country. And with the infrastructure bill that got passed a few years ago, I think the emphasis on that is only going to increase in the coming years and hopefully coming decades. And Gregory also mentioned the sort of hope or the vision of manufacturing and supply chain coming stateside, coming more into the U.S., hopefully relying a little bit less on, you know, overseas for manufacturing and supply chain stuff. That would obviously be a great scenario if we can get to there. So hopefully within the next 15, 20 years, that can be realized. And then just, you know, one thing from Damian, he talked about how people are going to have to be more savvy and hands-on, and it's going to be a different employee that aggregate producers are looking for. And I think the thing that stuck out to me as he was describing that is he mentioned that now companies like Peckham are looking for programmers, whereas, you know, back
electricians,
then, you're looking for electricians. So, you know, obviously these guys have been around this industry, been in this industry for a long time. I'm sure they've seen a lot change in their time. And if there's anyone that I would trust to know what they're talking about, it'd be these guys. So, happy 100 to Peckham. Here's to 100 more.
And congratulations. I mean, maybe just to kind of tie in what you were talking about a little bit with, you know, building civilization and you know, the runway ahead for infrastructure. Yeah, I think hearing from Gregory and Damian as well, I think I was kind of reminded and maybe reinvigorated that, you know, this industry does a lot of great things. Sometimes we don't tell our story well. Sometimes we forget about the good things that we do, you know, in between the day-to-day work that we're going about grinding, producing materials. But you think about where our infrastructure is at, you know, bridges are collapsing or crumbling. I mean, our infrastructure, according to I think it's the American Society of Civil Engineers, at their last grade was like D+, maybe C- at best, but that's not good enough. And we haven't, you know, we do have a strong highway bill right now, pumping in more dollars federally to roads, bridges, and highways. So, you know, we want to see another one of those come forward in the coming years. But I think based on the state of our infrastructure, there's so much more opportunity. You know, you talked about bringing manufacturing back on shore, Jack, and yeah, we're already seeing that with the CHIPS Act, and, you know, understanding that we can't be dependent on other nations, on China to do all of our manufacturing, that we've got to get the supply chain under control. And, you know, that's another huge opportunity to fuel construction materials demand, you know, now and in the many years to come. So was, again, really reinvigorated hearing from those guys about what the future looks like, and so wonderful that they were willing to share the Peckham Industries stories with Pitt and Corey. So thanks again, guys, and congratulations to everybody at Peckham Industries. Well, with that, let's kind of transition to, you know, what's happening at Pitt and Corey right now, and then we'll end the show. We, again, by now you should have received your August edition of the magazine, so you can look for some special coverage on washing and classifying in the magazine. We've also, if you aren't aware, put out some information and details about the upcoming Pitt and Corey Roundtable and Conference. By now, we're inwards of 5 months to the next Pitt and Corey Roundtable. It's going to be in January at the Wigwam in the Phoenix area, down in the Southwest. So looking forward to that. And if you want to get some more information on that, go to pittandcoreyroundtable.com. We also have some information on that in our August edition. So, you know, be sure to flip through the pages and look for more details within the latest edition of the magazine. What's next on Drilling Deeper? We're hoping to get some insight from our friends and partners at FMI. Not sure if that's going to be on the very next episode or two, but our friends at FMI, that of course would be George Redden and Rob Minio. Looking forward to visiting with them here this summer and kind of getting a mid-year update and maybe some insights on what's 2025 looking like at this point. And I'm hoping too to, you know, as we heard from the good folks at Peckham Industries today, to visit with Sunrock. You know, if you read the magazine month in, month out, you probably read our story in 2023 about, you know, Sunrock, you know, working in tandem with Steve Zelnick, the former chairman and CEO at Martin Marietta. So I'm hoping to get Brian Full on the podcast, and you know, in the pages of the magazine here, as Sunrock is celebrating its 75th anniversary. So, you know, a lot of family businesses are coming up on these big milestones. So shout out to Sunrock, and congrats on your 75th year in 2024. Jack, what else can we put out to our readers before we wrap up here today?
Yeah, no, just want to as always, thank everyone for listening, watching this episode. If there's ever anything that you want to hear from us, anything you want to hear differently or hear more of, please let us know. You can reach us via email at jkopanski@northcoastmedia.net. That's myself. You can reach Kevin at kyanik@northcoastmedia.net. Just let us know how you think the show's going. If there's anything we should be doing differently, doing more of, doing better, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we're coming up on a full year here, Jack.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It has. And before we go, just want to give one more thank you to our show sponsor, TCI Manufacturing. Celebrating 25 years of excellence in 2025, TCI Manufacturing embodies the promise of concepts to reality as the industry's leading aggregate resource. TCI specializes in precision-engineered, custom-fabricated steel products committed to delivering top quality, strength, and precision in every project. Learn more at www.tcimfg.com. Thank you to TCI.
Yeah, thanks again. That should do it for episode 21 of Drilling Deeper. Jack, thanks for joining me to talk about Peckham Industries and all things aggregates.
Thrilled as always.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
See you.